There is a man who is 50 years old, yet he still reacts to problems the way a teenager would. There is also a young woman who is only 22, yet she thinks more clearly than most people twice her age. So what actually makes someone an adult? It is not the number on their ID card. It is not even the number of years they have lived. Developmental psychologist Erik Erikson spent decades studying this exact question, and his answer surprised a lot of people. Growing up, he said, is not a stage you reach automatically. It is a psychological task you must complete, and many adults never finish it in their entire lives. In this video, we will unpack the real meaning of becoming an adult, based on psychological research, not social media opinions. According to Erikson's research, humans pass through 8 psychosocial stages across their lifetime, and the most critical one happens right in our 20s. This stage is called identity versus role confusion. This is where a person tries to answer the most basic question of all: who am I really? And what do I stand for? If this stage is never resolved, a person can stay stuck in confusion for the rest of their life, even if their body has long since grown up. Interestingly, psychologist Jeffrey Arnaids introduced a new term, emerging adulthood, to describe the phase between 18 and 29. In this phase, a person is no longer a teenager, but has not yet fully stepped into adult roles either. This is why so many people in their 20s feel lost, even though it is actually a normal part of the process. What separates those who grow from those who stay stagnant is not their age, but how they respond to this uncertainty. The first true marker of adulthood is emotional regulation. Nobel-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman explained that the human mind operates through 2 systems. System 1 is fast, automatic, and driven by emotion. System 2 is slow, deliberate, unlogical. People who have not matured emotionally tend to be dominated almost entirely by System 1, reacting first and thinking later. Neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett adds another crucial insight. Emotions, she argues, are not automatic reactions that simply happen to us. They are something our brain actively constructs based on past experience and present context. This means we have far more control over our emotions than we think, and that control can be trained. Imagine 2 people receiving the exact same criticism from their boss. The first one gets angry instantly, responds defensively, then regrets it all day. The second one takes a breath, asks what can be learned from it, and responds calmly. What separates them is not talent, it is a mental habit trained over years. That is what emotional adulthood actually looks like in practice. The second segment is responsibility, not in a purely moral sense, but a psychological one. Psychologist Julian Rosser introduced the concept of locus of control back in 1966. People with an internal locus of control believe that the outcomes of their life are largely shaped by their own actions. People with an external locus of control tend to blame circumstances, fate, or other people. Research shows that an internal locus of control correlates with better mental health, higher academic achievement, and greater life satisfaction. This does not mean ignoring the factors outside our control. It means we stop waiting for circumstances to change and instead start asking, what can I do right now, with what I already have? James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, explains this through the lens of identity. According to him, real change happens not when we focus on outcomes, but when we build a new identity through small, consistent actions. A truly mature person does not say, I want to be disciplined. They say, I am someone who keeps promises to myself, and then prove it through daily action. The third segment comes from psychiatrist Carl Jung, through a concept he called individuation. According to Jung, throughout our lives we build what he called a persona, a social mask we wear to be accepted by those around us. The problem is, many people wear this mask for so long that they forget who they really are underneath it. Individuation is the process of integrating every part of ourselves, including what Jung called the shadow, the parts of us we reject or hide out of shame or fear of judgment. A psychologically mature adult does not run from their darker side. Instead, they recognize it, understand it, and integrate it as a whole part of who they are. This also explains why so many people in their 30s or 40s experience what is popularly called a midlife crisis. In truth, it is not a crisis in the negative sense. It is an inner call to stop living for other people's expectations and start living as your whole, authentic self. Jung considered this the most important calling in a human life. The fourth segment relates to the ability to delay gratification. A classic study by psychologist Walter Mischel in the 1970s, known as the marshmallow experiment, tested whether children could resist eating one marshmallow now or to get to marshmallows later. Follow-up studies once claimed this predicted future success. But it is important to be honest here. More recent research by psychologist Tyler Watts in 2018 showed that environmental factors, such as a family's economic background, actually played a much bigger role than the ability to delay gratification itself. This matters because maturity is not about blaming ourselves if life has been hard. It is about understanding that long-term thinking can still be trained, regardless of where we started. A truly mature person learns to make today's decisions with their future self in mind, 10 years down the road. This shows up in small things, like choosing to save rather than spend impulsively, or choosing to resolve conflict calmly other than cutting people off impulsively. Maturity is not about becoming rigid and serious. It is about realizing that every choice we make today is a letter we're writing to our future self. The fifth segment, and the one most often overlooked, is the ability to build healthy relationships. Erikson called this stage intimacy versus isolation, which emerges after a person has successfully built a solid identity. Ironically, many people assume maturity means becoming fully independent and needing no one. Research actually shows the opposite. The Harvard longitudinal study on adult development, which has run for more than 80 years, found that the quality of our relationships is the strongest predictor of long-term happiness and health, far stronger than wealth or fame. Psychologist Robert Waldinger, who leads the study, called this the clearest conclusion from 8 decades of research. In other words, true maturity does not mean standing completely alone, needing no one. It means being able to connect in a healthy way, depending on others without losing your own identity, and knowing when to ask for help without feeling weak for it. That is maturity in relationships, and it is trained, not something you're simply born with. So let's bring this together. Becoming an adult is not about age, a degree, a job title, or marital status. It comes down to 5 things: the ability to manage your emotions, take ownership of your life, recognize and integrate every side of yourself, think for the sake of your future self, and connect with others in a healthy way. Every psychologist we've discussed, from Erikson to Jung, agrees on one thing: maturity is not a final destination you reach, and then you're done. It is an ongoing process, full of setbacks, mistakes, and relearning. So if you still feel like you haven't grown up today, that is not a failure. It simply means you are still in the process, and that is a deeply human thing to be. If this video shifted your perspective, help us out by subscribing to the Notes on Being Human channel, so you don't miss our future deep dives into psychology and personal growth. Leave a comment. Out of the 5 things we just covered, which one feels the most challenging for you right now? Next week, we're breaking down why even the smartest people often make the worst financial decisions. You won't want to miss it.